Now more than ever, RVers and nomads need to stick together to protect their personal freedoms. Full-time RVers, be aware of significant legal and financial consequences that may result from the mandates by the United States Postal Service, algorithms used by major banks, and a recent Florida Department of Revenue rule change specific to the Department of Motor Vehicle. Together, these three changes are limiting RVers' ability to open bank accounts, obtain bank loans, and worse, are causing hassles when nomads attempt to fly and go through TSA checkpoints. Why is this happening? In my opinion, it's the Anti-Freedom Patriot Act. Everyone watching, I implore you to share this video with anyone you know that lives nomadically, and more importantly, with your government representative. I will begin by revealing the most recent and damaging change to RVers' financial stability and personal liberties. Next, I will explain how corporations are collaborating with government initiatives to monitor and surveil nomads using the Patriot Act to justify this. Finally, I will share a personal experience that has affected us here at Thunder Canyon and the hoops I have had to jump through to protect my campers. For context, while most Americans live in a traditional stationary home that we affectionately refer to as sticks and bricks, those who live nomadic lifestyles such as RVers, boaters, and expats have to establish a legal domicile by other means. This is necessary for obtaining essential services and documents like a driver's license, vehicular insurance, medical insurance, voting rights, and basic banking like opening up a bank account and having a debit card. For 40 years, legal accommodations have been made to allow nomads to secure these basic necessities. States like Texas, North Dakota, and Florida have created legal pathways to obtain residency without infringing on the freedoms of those who choose to live a nomadic lifestyle. Additionally, services like Escapees, America's Mailbox, and My RV Mail, whom we use personally and we do recommend, provide mail collection services as commercial mail receiving agencies for those who choose to live nomadically. The Florida Department of Revenue's Motor Vehicle Department now requires Florida residents living in vehicles and vessels, including cars, RVs, and boats, to use their plate or tag number as their address on their driver's license. Individuals who reside full-time in their vehicles, including travel nurses, full-time RVers, those who live in boats, as well as those who have been forced by a lack of means to live in their vehicles, must now use their license plate number as their address on their driver's license. The purpose of this is to enhance law enforcement's ability to track and locate those individuals living a nomadic lifestyle by linking their license plate number to the driver's license. But this is causing huge headaches because banking institutions are rejecting applicants with these driver's license tag addresses, and TSA is finding these addresses very suspicious. And you can understand why, because these addresses are essentially a license plate number, a city, a state, and a zip code. You might be wondering if a new law was passed in Florida issuing this mandate, or why this sudden change is being implemented. This is not a Florida statute, and I assure you no Floridian has voted on this measure. But the Department of Revenue has taken it upon themselves to add this as an internal rule. Now let's talk about the role the banks are playing in limiting RVer freedoms. Banks are inherently risk averse, and as a former banker, I understand their apprehension towards applicants and borrowers who live nomadically. It's more challenging to recover collateral in the event of a default when home is where you park it. However, I was surprised to learn that major banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Capital One, Schwab, to name a few, have developed risk management algorithms that flag applicants with commercial addresses. These commercial addresses include mail services, UPS stores, P.O. boxes, and even campgrounds and RV parks like Thunder Canyon Campground. And now, thanks to Florida setting the precedent, banks will be able to decline to do business with you because your friggin' license plate number is on your driver's license as your address. I can already hear the underwriter stamping, decline, decline, decline. And when you ask the bank why they won't accept these commercial addresses, and when you try to explain the RV life, you know what they say? They say it's due to the Patriot Act. It's not just the banks that want to track you and know where you are. So if you require any remote financial sophistication, like a basic bank account or heaven forbid a debit card, you are now forced to buy a house, you have to rent an apartment, or in some way, shape, or form have a physical stationary residence. Many are entrusting a family member and using the family member's address to retain their nomadic freedoms. But let's face it, guys, not all RVers can do this. And now, instead of our government protecting us from these mega corporations and protecting our freedoms, they're joining forces with the debt collectors to better surveil us. And while I understand that what I'm saying is a huge accusation to make, what else would one think in light of the recent steps taken by the United States Postal Service? Just recently, full-time RVers and other nomads who employ commercial mail receiving agencies, CMRAs, to safeguard their mail were compelled to resubmit their Forms 1583 by January 1st of 2025. This form allows applicants to employ a CMRA in order to obtain the mail on one's behalf. But this compulsory requirement forced all nomads to resubmit their 1583s electronically, and under threat of losing the license if the CMRA could be proven to have failed to comply with this order with just one nomad, they risked their ability to service all under their care. While having personally been forced to resubmit this form, I was fortunate that my RV mail made it easy to comply. However, even those using a UPS store box to receive their mail had to jump through these additional hoops. In fact, comment below if you were one of those nomads compelled to resubmit this form. You might be surprised. But that's not all the post office is up to. The government's efforts to surveil got personal when I was faced with more anti-nomadic red tape. All of the long-term tenants under my care here at Thunder Canyon were denied the ability to use legal residential addresses to receive their mail. I jumped through all the legal hoops. I obtained residential addresses for those staying here at Thunder Canyon long-term by 911 officials. But my very kind local postmaster informed me that her leadership was denying her multiple requests to provide my residents with residential addresses because RVs aren't stationary. If my long-term residents wanted to receive mail, they would have to either use the Thunder Canyon commercial address or obtain a P.O. box. Both options, you know now, are causing financial hardships by limiting my tenants' ability to bank and forcing my people, primarily seniors on a fixed income, to incur an additional expense and pay for a P.O. box. I sent multiple emails and I had multiple phone calls explaining why I needed this for my people. But that was not enough. Those of you who know me know how ferociously I will protect my loved ones, and I was forced to provide proof that these RVers were in fact stationary by submitting lease agreements to the post office. Request still denied. Now, remember what's at stake here. I must provide my residents with these residential addresses to ensure that they can bank. But no, leadership at the United States Post Office insisted on putting an undue financial burden to my senior RVers on fixed income. So how do you get around this, you ask? You send the mail anyways, and you force the carriers to recognize the address by sending that mail. But I am livid. This is making RVers and nomads second-class citizens and denying us protections and basic services that we need to function in this country. And that's not all. What about the person that's down on their luck, that is forced to live in a vehicle because that's their only option? I was blessed to become a full-time RVer by choice. But let's be real here, guys. Not everyone has that luxury. And if you're experiencing financially hard times, how are you going to dig yourself out of that hole with the deck stacked against you? When you finally get a job, how are you going to cash your paycheck without a bank account? How are you going to pay bills without a debit card? How are you going to get proper and affordable insurance on your vehicle and home? How are you going to do your civic duty and vote? Because how are you going to know which polling station you're assigned to when your address is your license plate number? And what is freedom going to look like for the next generation? Because exploration and adventure are as American as red meat and potatoes. And what will this country look like if the next generation is under surveillance and being tracked and never gets even the option to live nomadically? Guys, don't rest on your laurels, because this isn't about your freedom. It's about the next generation and the would-be explorers that come behind you. Help me get the word out, and I'll see you in the next video.